Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you are new here, my name is Kim and I'm an elementary school teacher here in Yokohama, Japan. And today, it's just one of those days where I know the background is not great and I know it's probably not the best scenery, but I really wanted to get a video out to you, and such a busy time right now for me, especially from October to December, things are just starting to become a blur because things at work are super busy. I thought it might be a good idea to give you a little timeline if you're planning to work here in Japan, either as a JET program participant or as a teacher, because there are certain times of the year that are incredibly busy, and it may differ to what you believe your holidays are, or when you think, oh, this would be a good time to travel because it's such and such vacation, when actually it might not be a vacation for you. So let's get into a little timeline and discuss what a possible work year might be for you. So as many of you probably already know, the Japanese school year runs from April until March. It is a year-round school system, and they do have sometimes semester breaks or term breaks depending on what type of schedule your school follows. Usually it's a trimester system with 3 terms throughout the year, although there are some schools that use a 2-semester system and they kind of break that into 2 different quarters. Once again, it totally depends on your school system. You're going to hear that phrase a lot during your time here, but it really does matter. And prefecture to prefecture, it could be different. City to city, it could be different. So once you get your assignment, you'll find out most likely what schedule your school follows. Usually the JET program follows a system where JETs come in the summertime, usually in July and August, and begin in September or at the end of August. So a lot of JETs will be starting when it is the school's second term. I used to think, okay, this works well for me, but in the grand scheme of things looking back, I kind of wish we had started in April with everybody else, but I do understand why maybe it's easier for a JET participant or an ALT, assistant language teacher, to start in the middle of a school year, because the homeroom teacher or the teachers in charge will have had at least a term to prepare their students for your arrival and kind of get them ready to begin your year of team teaching. So I thought I'd break it down from the beginning of the school year in April to the end in March and give you some potential areas that could be busy times for you and when you may not want to plan that little vacation or have people come and visit you. So Japanese schools have a lot of ceremonies. You'll notice that most schools, all the way from your very primary schools, like nursery schools, kindergartens, all the way up until university and possibly even graduate school, they pay great attention and detail to opening ceremonies and entrance ceremonies. Let me tell you the difference. An entrance ceremony is when students are first entering the school for the first time. So, if they've taken an exam to get in, or if they had to go through an application process to get in, it's a big deal. If it is an opening ceremony, it is just the beginning of term. Both are formal ceremonies. Both are ceremonies you will be expected to attend. If you are starting any ceremony, like a second term ceremony, third term ceremony, once again, these are formal and you are expected to attend. If you are coming in as a new teacher, most likely you will have to do a little self-introduction speech and you'll be formally introduced to the entire school at this ceremony. Oftentimes the ceremony is a few words from the principal or the administration, the headmaster, with possible introductions of other new teachers or staff members. And they don't usually last very long, although some can last quite long. It just depends on how many speakers there are and sometimes how the weather is, because I do remember starting in JET, and it was the summertime, and having students standing in a gymnasium or an auditorium, for an extended length of time can be quite physically demanding. And I remember we always had students fainting. Usually at these ceremonies, since they are formal, it's most likely a suit day or a day that you want to at least look like you are a business professional. And sometimes that's all that happens at the school on that day. It's just the ceremony, and then there are no classes for the day. Now, let's go through the first term. Usually in April, May, it's a chance for classmates and even new colleagues to get to know each other. And so a lot of schools plan something called an Ensoku. An Ensoku is literally translated as a long walk, but we sort of informally translate it as an excursion. So you could be assigned to go on an excursion with a group of classes, grade level, and it's mainly for everyone to kind of get to know each other. It's really important at elementary schools because it's a time that the students can get familiar and have fun with their classmates. It usually takes a long day, and if you are invited to go, I strongly suggest to go, because it's kind of nice to be able to get out of the classroom and enjoy the outdoors, or maybe a tourist site in your neighborhood. And I don't know, I think it's a good way to make relationships with the students outside of the class. Oftentimes there's a picnic and you eat lunch with everybody. It's a nice day if it's good weather. So that usually happens during the first term. Another thing that you probably will be expected to attend or possibly even prepare for is your school's sports day. Now, technically, the national holiday of Sports Day is in October. So in years past, a lot of these sports days were planned during the month of October. However, sometimes second term is usually a really busy term, especially for high schools. So a lot of schools decided maybe it's better to move our sports days a little bit sooner. Problem is during the summer months, and sometimes even still in September, it's very hot and humid. And so a lot of schools decided they would move their sports days to May. Most schools usually have a year-long calendar and a more detailed calendar from term to term. Check and make sure that you know when your school's sports festival is. Almost every school has one, and this is another event that you will probably be asked to attend. It might fall on a Saturday, it might fall on a Sunday. Oftentimes they make it on a Sunday so that family members and friends can come and cheer on their children. So be sure and check with that and make sure that you don't schedule anything for either the sports day or the rainy day substitution day, because if in case it rains on that particular assigned sports day, sometimes they have an alternate sports day planned. So you want to make sure that you know when both of those days are so that you don't schedule anything. I've had a lot of disappointed ALTs who plan a weekend trip somewhere and then they realize that they were required to attend their school's sports festival. For those of you that are thinking, oh my gosh, it's a Sunday, I don't work on Sunday. I believe it does say somewhere in the JET contract that there will be days that you may have to work on a day that would normally be considered your day off. Never fear though, because if you do work on a Sunday, you are often given a substitute holiday or replacement holiday for that Sunday. A lot of schools usually make it the next day. So if you worked on a Sunday, you might have Monday off. Some schools, I feel like I have an eyelash in my eye. Some schools take that holiday and they might add it somewhere else. So for example, one of my previous schools, they had their sports day in May, but they took one of the days as a substitute day and put it to the Golden Week holidays. So you actually had a longer holiday or a string of holidays elsewhere. It depends on your school, and some like prefectural and city schools are usually required to follow whatever the Board of Education declares, whereas private schools, you might have a little bit more leeway, or there might be a little bit more flexibility in the way they make the schedule. So once again, check that schedule. Just see when your sports day is. It's a busy time, but in a fun way. You'll see that PE teachers are extremely busy. If there's anything you can do to help the PE teachers or your staff with setting up or helping out, by all means, volunteer or tell them that you're willing to help set up. Sometimes you will be required to set up, and that might mean putting up tents. It might mean bringing out chairs, preparing the grounds with the proper lines. It's one of those events where a lot of teamwork happens, and you'll see this amongst the staff members and the students. The older the students are, the more responsibilities they probably will have in organizing this particular event, especially at the junior and senior high school levels. There's often committees of students that help prepare for this. At the elementary schools, usually maybe the 5th and 6th graders help, but teachers do a lot of the setups. It's very intense, but at the same time, I think it's one of the most enjoyable festivals that you'll have and participate in. If they ask you to do an event, by all means, take part, have fun, go ahead and run a relay, go ahead and let the students make you up funny or whatever it is they ask you to do. I say that kind of sarcastically because I was asked to run in a relay, and I'm not exactly the best runner, but I really wanted to give it my all and show my athletic skills, what little I have. So I remember I was in a relay, and you pass the baton and then you do like a section of the track. So I was ready. I'd practiced the baton passing. I was ready to go. It came my turn, got the baton, took off and slid and just fell. I don't know what it was. It was like I took off, but my feet stayed in the same place. And I scratched up both knees. I got up. I ran. My knees were bleeding. Nothing like getting a little sympathy and probably a lot of laughs from trying too hard and making an absolute fool of yourself. But it's okay. Since that day, I never did any of those events. However, at one of my schools, I was lucky enough to be able to help out with the cheer dance. Each team, so they had like the red team and the white team. Each team had a special theme song for its grade, and the 6th graders usually choreograph or have a dance choreographed, and they do like a little cheer. And since my club in high school was drill team and I enjoyed choreographing routines, especially pom-pom routines or just going out in the field and making formations, I thought, hey, this is my specialty. I can do this. So took the 6th graders and we did a routine with pom-poms and pom-pom passes. Learned that from high school. And made all these formations, different formation changes to the music that the 6th graders had chosen. And it was so much fun. I had a blast. And so if you have any skills in that area, see if you can help out with any of the dances. Same with if you are good at sports or if you are good at running. I'll tell you something that teachers and kids love is they love when a teacher participates in a relay. So those of you that are a lot faster than me and a lot more coordinated. If you want to participate in a relay, say, hey, can I do this? So, yeah, it's a good way to get active and kind of become a part of your school. So that could be in May for you. It could be, sometimes some schools even have it as late as June or July. Ugh, super hot. And my school usually has it in October. However, this year it was changed to, gosh, when was it changed to? Was it changed to May? Actually, because of the circumstances of the world, we've had to change the sports day a little bit. But hopefully next year, people will, or schools will be able to do a sports day, a traditional type of sports day. Just be prepared for anything. Okay, so actually, first term, that's probably the biggest events. You may or may not have school trips. Just a word about Golden Week holidays. In your head, you probably think, oh, great, Golden Week holidays, great time to travel. Yes, it is a great time to travel, but it's also one of the only times some Japanese company members and families get to travel. So prices can get quite expensive and things fill up really quickly, and you may not actually have a string of holidays that make it a Golden Week. So you may have work on maybe, let's see, it could go like you have work on Monday, but not Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe Golden Week falls on, the 3rd falls on a Tuesday, the 4th falls on a Wednesday, and the 5th falls on a Friday. And then you still may have work on the Monday and the Friday. Did that make sense? It doesn't always fall nicely. We're talking about 3, 4, 5, May 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So depending on how that falls, you might not have those in-between days off. And you will possibly, I shouldn't say possibly, you will probably have classes assigned to you. And depending on your relationship with the school and your colleagues, it may or may not be frowned upon if you take those days off. It makes sense, right? It makes sense to have that time off so that you can enjoy a week off. But it doesn't always work that way. And I would say, if you want to maintain the peace and if you don't want somebody else to have to cover your class and work doubly hard while you're off sunning yourself somewhere else, then maybe reschedule. But like I said, it's a decision you'll have to make. But yeah, it doesn't always work in your favor depending on where you're at and what your school requires of you attendance-wise. All right, so that brings us to the summer vacation. Summer vacation, you're pretty much free to do what you want. However, some schools will require that you come in on what you assumed were going to be your days off, but you are getting paid for that time, so technically your attendance could be required. Even if it's just to get some materials done, even without any classes. If you did want to take that time off, you would have to use your personal holiday leave, which you're given a certain number of at the beginning of the year. And it can be a little frustrating. However, I'll explain it in another video about the types of holidays you can take, or the types of formal absences that you can take, so that you can actually be sort of working on those days that you should be going into school when there's no students. You can be taking days of research, or things like studying Japanese, or studying the culture, or doing something study-wise or business-related where you do have time to travel. I know I'm probably not making a whole lot of sense. I'm trying to be a little cryptic here. But yeah, we'll go over that in another video. Anyways, let's go to now the second term, which is most likely if you're a new jet when you'd be starting in September. From September to November, well, no, September to December. I personally feel like second term is the busiest, maybe because it's one of the longest and there's so many things packed in. If you do have your school sports day, you have your school sports day then. There's also something called a bunkasai. Bunkasai means culture festival. The national holiday for Culture Day is November 3rd. So some schools try to link up their school's cultural festival with this national holiday. Other schools like to put it with the sports festival. So you might have the sports festival and the cultural festival together. At one of my previous schools, we had the cultural festival for 2 days, and then the culminating event was the sports festival. Wow, that's almost like a tongue twister. So the cultural festival is an event where the students really shine and show their talents. It could be Japanese culture, it could be different performances, different arts or different talents that the students display. Sometimes it could be going to an event or putting on a performance. But one of the most fun parts or fun aspects of the culture festival is when students make special booths. It's almost like a carnival. And these booths range from everything to eating, snacks, making Japanese street food, to games, like making photo stickers. The games are pretty fun. They're cute. They're made and designed by the students. Some are very elaborate, some are very simple. Sometimes you'll have what we used to call in the U.S. white elephant sales. I'm not sure if that's what they call, like selling recycled goods or selling someone else's treasure or cast off as a new treasure for someone else. So you might have some of those. You might have special lotteries with prizes. Just an array of things. Also, when they finish, there's a lot of feeling of relief, and especially for 6th graders, they get really emotional. Or if you're teaching at a junior or senior high school, the senior members of the school, it gets pretty emotional. So enjoy it. Now, another reason why it might be busy at your school, and this is one of the reasons why it's really busy at my school right now, is if you work at a private school, or even not. Even if you're at maybe a school that does have entrance exams, like at a high school, you might be asked to sit in on meetings to help prepare, organize, design, record, whatever. But entrance exams come at a time usually in either the fall or the beginning of the 3rd term, depending on the type of school you're at. And it's a very intense time because so much attention is paid to detail, getting things exactly right, making sure that there are no leaks or information slips, anything that could possibly interfere with the credibility of the school. So great pains are taken, and it's very time consuming. For some meetings, they may last till well into the evening hours. It is so confidential at most schools that they ask you not even to talk about anything with your family members. And I guess the only word I can use to describe it is intense. You may, as a JET participant or an ALT, you may be given that time off because it is so confidential that oftentimes if schools have part-time workers or part-time teachers, they are not privy to anything related to the entrance exams, and so they may consider an ALT in that category. If they do, don't feel hurt or don't feel like your services aren't needed or that you're not appreciated. You are valued and you are appreciated, but it's just for probably privacy or confidential reasons, or maybe they just don't know you well enough to trust you with all that information. So yeah, I wouldn't feel too upset if you're asked not to participate. And if you are given that time off, lucky you. Then again, you may be asked to proctor, which basically just means standing there and making sure that nobody cheats or brings anything. You may be asked to wait with a group of people. Depending on your school, you'll be given an assignment. You may even be asked to be part of the English teachers team, and you might be asked to help with proofreading or correcting exams. It all depends on your school. So once again, this is a time when you may want to ask somebody that you trust or feel comfortable asking whether or not you'll be having responsibilities during that time, or if you need to come in, or what. You'll have to ask. But my advice would be to ask tactfully, because it is a very busy time for other teachers, and even though teachers don't usually show it, in my head, I always think, oh, they're probably upset that I don't have to come in this day, or that I'm not doing this or that. So just be conscious and just be considerate of what they might be going through. Usually at elementary schools, there's not a whole lot of end-of-term exams or midterm exams. But if you're working at a junior high school or high school, you most likely will have an exam period. Some of you will be asked to help design, perhaps, or proctor, or take part in exams. You might be asked to correct exams, or you may not. You may be given that time off. Once again, if you are, just remember your colleagues are super busy at that time, but if you could have a few days to maybe prepare for other lessons or something, it's kind of a nice gift. But check again and see. Don't just assume that you'll be doing this or that, or that you will have that time off. Definitely communication is so important here. But exam periods happen, gosh, to me it always seems like they happen more often than they don't. They do have some standardized testing at the elementary school level. Usually we're not asked to do anything. If you are asked to proctor, basically what it just means is walking around and checking to make sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to, and that no items that you shouldn't have are with them. Just follow what your school's rules or procedures are, and you should be fine. Okay? As it gets closer to December, this is kind of a tricky one, because December 25th, Christmas Day, is not recognized as a national holiday. The previous emperor's birthday was December 23rd, but he's no longer the emperor, so so December is sometimes considered just a regular working time in preparation for the New Year's holidays. So in Japan, you get New Year's holidays off, but Christmas is not a recognized holiday. So it's understandable, and it's usually acknowledged if you do celebrate Christmas and you would like to request that day off, then go ahead and do so. You may need to take a personal leave for that time, but most places are pretty understanding, because they do recognize that many people that are coming from foreign countries do celebrate Christmas. I don't know about Hanukkah, because I know at my school in Los Angeles, people were given holidays off from other religions, but in Japan, I don't think very many people are aware of the different holidays related to different religions. So if you have a holiday that you personally celebrate or that is very important to you, please check and make sure that it doesn't conflict with anything, but you would be certainly entitled to take that as a personal holiday, I believe. Case by case once again, but I would say that I haven't heard of anybody being upset with not being able to take a certain day off if they requested it in the formal way, just by taking your personal holiday and using that as a reason. So now let's get to third term. Third term, the biggest event is probably culmination or graduation. Some schools, because if you're at an elementary school and they go to the neighborhood junior high school, they don't call it a graduation ceremony. They'll call it a culmination ceremony. If your school connects to the junior high or secondary schools, they might call it a completion ceremony. At most junior high schools and high schools, they do call it a graduation ceremony. No matter what they call it, it is a pretty big event. It's given almost the same formality as an entrance ceremony, and it's something that you will be most likely required to attend. The graduation ceremonies usually do happen on a work day, so I don't think you'd have to worry about having to come in on a Saturday or Sunday unless the graduation day falls on a Saturday or Sunday. A lot of high schools have a certain day, a designated day, which is usually March 1st for some reason, if I recall. But it could be a different day. But they'll usually have a designated day, and leading up to it, if you're like a 6th grade teacher or if you teach one of the graduating classes, you might be busy with preparations or going through rehearsals. It just depends on your relationship at the school with the graduating classes, and you may be asked to help students with speeches if they're giving a speech. There's a lot of preparation behind the scenes, like setup and getting things organized. So you might be asked to help with that. But all in all, it is an event, something I think is kind of interesting to see because it's pretty formal in a different way than I think many of us in our own home countries are used to. There's a lot of speeches, a lot of tears, and yeah, I've been to elementary school, junior high school, and high school graduations. I've cried at all three. But they're all touching in many different ways. So after that, usually you've got a few more days afterwards with the students that are not graduating, because the graduating students usually leave before the end of school. There's a lot of cleanup. So this is getting ready for the end of the school year in March. You've got about anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks. Okay, it just depends on your school situation. And normally in our Western way of thinking, or if you were in the U.S. school system, you think spring break, yes. But spring break is definitely one of the busiest times for Japanese teachers or at Japanese schools, because it's finishing up all the documentation, paperwork, whatever, from the old school year and getting ready and preparing for the new school year, which will start in April. So those couple of weeks, you've got a massive paperwork, or I guess now it's computer work, just a lot of documentation. You might be asked to do reports. I think most of the formal reports, probably the Japanese teachers would do, unless you are hired at a school where you have that responsibility. There's a lot of things that need to be tied up and given to the next school in line, like if they're going to junior high school or secondary. So once again, lots of paperwork. And then and then you've got a little bit of time to get ready for April. So that means getting all your new students and preparing for the group of new students, getting their names and numbers. And if you have your own classroom, or if you have an English classroom that you teach at, getting everything ready for the new school year. It's super busy. You will hopefully have a few days at least to yourself to kind of refresh. And sometimes teachers are given that time off, ALTs or part-time teachers. Sometimes you are given that time off and they leave all the preparation to the permanent teachers or the teachers that are going to be in charge of different programs. So you may have that time off, but just don't assume. Once again, just check and make sure. And then the whole year starts up again. Anyways, I've shared a lot about just a typical year with just some of the major events that might take place. If you at your school, if you have anything at your school in Japan or something that you've experienced that has made it super busy for you at a certain time, please feel free to leave them down below in the comments. If you have any questions about a certain time of year, or maybe whether or not this would be a good time to travel, or what events might conflict with your plans, go ahead and you can ask those questions below, and I'll try and see what I could do to help you out. As always, I do appreciate everybody that comes in here, and I've learned from having so many mistakes and living through a lot of experiences, and I'd be happy to share them with you to help make your time in Japan or your teaching career in Japan a little bit easier for you. If you perhaps would like to learn a little bit more about teaching in Japan, or just what things are like here in Japan, please feel free to subscribe, and you can hit the notification bell so that when I do hopefully post a little bit more and more, you can get notified for that. Thank you so much for your support and for your patience, and let's go ahead and let's get you over here if you're interested in coming to Japan. And if you are just another teacher or just someone that's curious about what life is like here, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, take care. Bye.